Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with BB, and today for 10 Minutes Max, we are going to be talking about the death of ETH BTC. Hopefully, this is a bottom signal, but I don't know. The chart looks pretty bad. And then we'll discuss what could potentially change in the near future. Before we get into it, guys, if you could do me a solid, please consider liking and also subscribing to the channel if you are new here. We are growing so quickly. Well over 16,000 subs now, and it's all thanks to you guys and your consistent, continued support of what we are building here at BB. If you don't know what this is Ethereum denominated in Bitcoin. So it's just when this chart is moving up like this, that means that ETH is a better hold than Bitcoin. And when it's doing this, Bitcoin's a better hold than ETH. Now, this chart looks maybe worse than any chart in the history of charts potentially ever, right? So I look at this and I go, all right, this was a level we needed to more or less hold. You could maybe deviate below, but it's starting to get pretty ugly. It's feeling as time progresses a little bit more reminiscent to this region, right? It's never exactly the same, but it's certainly starting to feel reminiscent. And when I said in my little intro, the death of ETH BTC, some of you may recall there was a very popular space that occurred last cycle down in this region. It was run by a bunch of Bitcoin maxis at the time. It may have even been on Clubhouse, but it was titled something like "The Death of ETH BTC" or "The Death of Ethereum. ETH BTC breaks below 0.02," and that ended up being like the Pico bottom. All right, so I'm kind of joking. I don't think ETH is actually dead, but it's certainly lagging against Bitcoin. But I want to talk about, maybe the way that we view Ethereum is wrong this cycle. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's not the same product that it was last cycle. And for those that don't like ETH, of course, it's been changed 100 times. So, it's having an identity crisis. You can make fun of it all you want. I do believe that ETH is here to stay. We're just seeing, unfortunately, sort of typical underperformance at a key point. But I want to talk about, again, maybe we're not viewing it the same way, and ETH is not that same risk on barometer that it was last cycle. So we'll start here with putting Bitcoin down below. All right, and then I'm going to pull up another chart here. But hang with me, right? And I do own some ETH. I mostly use it just to, borrow against it and buy stuff that maybe a little bit more risky. But here's Bitcoin USD down below. All right, we'll throw on the weekly time frame, and then also we're gonna actually put on ETH as well. So ETH USD, new pane, and what I'm attempting to show here is what typically happens when ETH pumps, to the broader market. We don't have infinite data points here, but you should be able to understand pretty clearly what happens when ETH BTC pumps. Okay, so here's Bitcoin, here's ETH, and then here's ETH BTC. All right. So when did ETH BTC really begin to perform well last cycle? It was right at this moment, this vertical line. So basically, ETH BTC put in, this is the type of performance that you're looking for, right? Like everybody holds ETH because they want this, and every cycle you more or less get it. But where was that, for Bitcoin, right? That was basically ETH BTC went crazy when Bitcoin was in its final distribution, like its final topping structure. All right, let's even move down to the lower time frames a little bit, and you can see. So when ETH BTC went crazy and basically went up, it was from middle of March to, I mean, even really just like this peak right here in May. You can see that it went from 0.03 all the way to 0.082. I mean, damn near a 3x in a very short period of time. Bitcoin was in its final distributive topping pattern, and ETH at the time actually went up, pretty decently from 1500 right here all the way to 40, looks like 4300. So you can see that, the divergence happened basically towards the end of this cycle, right? And then Bitcoin, of course, dropped from 64 to 28. ETH dropped from, 4300 down to, again 1600. But ETH BTC actually performing well last cycle was an indication that we are in fact getting towards the end of a cycle. Okay. So one could potentially interpret this as a good thing if you are in the camp that you want a longer crypto cycle and you want to be here for, an extended period of time, what could this, real severe underperformance of ETH against Bitcoin indicate? Well, it could indicate that we're down in this region somewhere, or let's just say like it's never the same, okay? But for ETH BTC, maybe you're somewhere, in this region, right? Somewhere around here, which of course would indicate that, Bitcoin trying to draw a parallel or a comparison to last cycle is still technically just sort of like chopping, reaccumulating, moving up, but certainly not near a cycle peak. If we are going to use ETH BTC in that conventional sense, what does it mean for the market? It still means that you're early, right? Because again, if history shows us anything, it's that when ETH BTC really begins to outperform this green area, typically it means the market's coming, close to a top. Okay. Um, so maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's cope. Maybe it's a good thing. Um, I am leaning towards us having quite a bit more time ultimately. So, I hope that it's not actually the death of ETH. I hope that it's just we're still early, and ETH pumping historically has been the end of a cycle. But I also want to talk about something else now, right? I want to talk about how maybe ETH has changed and it's not what it used to be, right? ETH used to be, our barometer or our gauge for gambling, right? Like when people last cycle really wanted to put their foot down to the floor and, go crazy in altcoins, what they would do is, it was ETH season, right? And ETH was of course a lot younger than it was. It is definitely different than than it was back in the day. But what are we seeing this cycle, right? Well, what we have right here is we have Sol BTC. All right. So obviously Sol has performed tremendously this cycle, specifically against Bitcoin. It was, one of the first leaders off of the bottom. It's been trending up aggressively all cycle. And what you've seen this cycle, in my opinion, feels much more reminiscent of, what we saw last cycle for ETH against Bitcoin, right? Like when people really want to gamble and put their foot to the floor in altcoins, what they do is they're over on Sol, and there's all these Sol dexes now, and there's a lot more Sol shit coins and like meme coins and stuff. And it seems to be Sol, and Sol is cheaper and faster and whatever. So I think it's possible as well that Sol is really our risk on barometer or gauge for this cycle rather than ETH BTC. And maybe ETH BTC pumping eventually is more so off of the backs of institutional adoption and a spot ETF approval rather than speculative altcoin gambling, which is what we saw last cycle, and in my opinion what we're seeing this cycle for Sol. So let's just take a look at like where we could potentially be. Let's just take a look at it. So I'm actually for ETH BTC here. Um we're gonna throw up others. That's fine. So others, again, others is, everything actually, yeah, that's fine. We'll throw up others. It's fine. So others is basically everything in crypto minus the top 10 by name. So this is your small cap and mid coin altcoin index. All right. So again, this is like you want to know if you're an alt season, look at others. Okay. This is your S&P 500 of altcoins. All right. And now here's Sol BTC. And here I'll label these just so we can keep it clear and nobody forgets. All right. And this is Sol BTC. All right. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to throw up others down below as well. All right. So here's others. So again, what we're looking to determine here is, how are we risk on? Are we risk off? Are we in alt season? Are we not in alt season? Can we use ETH BTC to even determine whether we're in alt season anymore, or do we need to be viewing ETH as an entirely different product? All right. So what we're going to do is mark out the previous cycle all-time highs for both. Again, this is others on both. So it's your altcoin index. We're also going to mark out the previous bull market complacency shoulder from last cycle. So this is your region in which you really need to be accepted back above in order for, the bull run to really start. And what do you notice? What do you notice here just looking at these? Well, for one, these structures kind of look similar to me. Like when I look at, this region, oops, that's not what I meant to draw. When I look at this region, for Sol BTC, in my mind, I see sort of this region. All right. And then, furthermore, I see some similarities with like, these two peaks over here, right? Where we blasted off of the low like this. We had a total capitulation here. And then you kind of have these two prominent highs right here. And again, it's never perfect. Okay. But the point of me showing this is like, where could we potentially be if this is not going to be an elongated cycle where, ETH BTC pumps and marks the top? Maybe we're looking at the wrong thing. Maybe we need to look at Sol BTC. Okay. So if we're looking at others again down here, what do we notice in terms of similarities? If we are around these two peaks, okay, and we're somewhere around this region, it would make sense as well. And again, it's never going to be perfect, right? But if we're somewhere around these two peaks, I'll just draw these as a box instead. If we're somewhere around these two peaks, it would kind of make sense to me, given where others is in this cycle. So, given where altcoins currently are, just sort of right beneath, the previous cycle complacency shoulder and all-time high for others, it would make sense that, we're somewhere around here. So what would that imply for the rest of the cycle? From this point when ETH BTC really started to move last cycle, what we saw was, once others finally decided to break through, we saw others, which again is your altcoin index, go up 800%. And then, of course, ETH BTC went up like 3x in a very short period of time. And again, from a timing perspective, we saw, the cycle was in like a year later, but we kind of had a double peak. So the first top was in 170 days, 150 days later. And then the cycle top, which was a weird cycle, double top was in like a year later. So maybe this cycle we need to be using Sol BTC as this gauge or barometer for risk rather than ETH, and then ETH will have its own sort of cycle, maybe more dependent on TradFi and ETFs getting approved. But that could potentially take others again up to, I would target at least a trillion. So maybe 300, 400, 500% from here, even maybe a couple trillion. And a year out would take us into, late Q1 or maybe Q2 of 2025. Or if we had another double top like we did last cycle, again, maybe it would be like a Q4 top of this year. So it's interesting to keep an eye on things, right? Like these charts look really similar to me, Sol BTC versus ETH BTC last cycle. And of course, the use case and similarities, uh, people are not really using ETH as much like they did last cycle. So we might just be viewing it wrong, right? And as it currently sits, ETH BTC looks terrible. It looks absolutely terrible. So we'll see. This is just kind of a little thesis I'm working on. Maybe it's cope. I own some ETH, mostly just to borrow against it and use those stable coins as liquidity for other things. But I definitely see some similarities here. And again, I think maybe we need to shift our mindset for what ETH BTC means. But also, like I mentioned, it's possible that ETH BTC is exactly what it was last cycle. Sol BTC is not replacing ETH BTC, and all that this implies is that we're still very early in the cycle, and ETH BTC is nowhere close to pumping yet. So, in my opinion, it's kind of a win-win. Either ETH BTC is capitulating, and it's an entirely different product, and it's not going to determine risk on or the end of a cycle anymore, or ETH BTC is just not what it used to be. It's maturing and it's shifting into something else. And Sol BTC is the new ETH BTC. So, guys, that's it. Just wanted to share that video. Please like and subscribe before you go. And last but not least, check out the links in the description below. The first one will take you to our website where you can sign up for our Discord. We do 2.5 hours a day of private live voice calls with me and the entire Because Bitcoin team. You can do Q&A. We share active positions, TA stuff we don't talk about here on YouTube or on X. Unparalleled experience. We work extremely hard and you will absolutely love it. So consider checking that out. Additional little bonus within the first link in the description below where you can sign up for a Discord. Within the next month, you are going to get free access included in your existing Discord membership to our new flagship product called the BB Terminal. It's basically a Bloomberg terminal, but for crypto guys. It's got portfolio tracking, derivatives data, heat maps, order flow, high time frame DCA indicators, literally everything that you could need or want to succeed in these markets bundled into one super website. and that will be included in your existing Discord membership for no additional cost. Second link in the description below is to the BB Academy, guys. This is a masterclass curated by me and the entire Because Bitcoin team. We share with you guys all of our tips, all of our secrets, all of our tricks, and our edge in these markets, how we navigate from a technical and fundamental perspective. There's a lot of people out there teaching TA, a lot of free material that some of it's good, some of it's bad. We can save you a lot of time and money, guys, learning the wrong things, okay? We have meticulously curated this master class. It's got everything that you need. And again, if you want to learn the arts of TA and FA and how to navigate these markets successfully, consider checking out the second link in the description below. It can save you weeks, months, quarters, even years of time learning the wrong things. We bundle everything you need to know into one neat, tidy, convenient package. And it's very, very, very fairly priced. Prices are going to be going up very soon, so check that out sooner rather than later. That's the second link in the description below to the BB Academy. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.